With another video. This serves as both a critique as well as a demonstration video. Now, this illustration is of Christopher's. So, yeah, let's get started. I chose actually the second lighting study because I thought that the light coming from the lamp I think would better serve the illustration. I think it's a little bit more interesting than just having the light come from any other place. So that's why I chose the second one. So, but like everybody else, it's really up to you what you want to go forward with. So, Chris, looking at your illustration, really nice base to start out with. What I'm missing though is the establishing the composition itself. I'm not sure if this whole space is the composition, or the frame, but we really have to establish it so that we can figure out the space and the environment. So the first thing I'm going to do is to take your illustration. Um, I don't know if you have this a um, on a separate document, like have it on separate layers. But right now I only have a JPEG version, which is a flat image. So I'm gonna click on a brand new layer. I'm gonna take my paint bucket tool. I'm gonna choose white. So you can click on this on the swatch and choose white, and just place it over it. And now I'm gonna lower the opacity to maybe like 75, 76%, just so that I could see the drawing and I could do a more clean up drawing on top of it. Before we move forward though, I also kind of want to address the fact that it looks like maybe you didn't use or click on the opacity toggle, which means that everything here is pretty hard edged, right? Meaning that you probably used like the paintbrush with hard edges, opaque hard edges instead of one with transparency. So if you have some time, please check out the prior videos that I posted on rendering in Photoshop because it becomes real clear. But I'll still go over it here. So basically what I mean is if I start a brand new layer here, I think you start painting with a brand new brush. I mentioned in the last couple of critiques, I tend to use a normal default hard brush, one that's already available to you in Photoshop. And then I turn on this toggle right over here. Right now, if you have it off, you're just going to get a hard edged opaque brush and you're not going to get rendering or sketching out of it. But if you turn it on, you can turn on the transparency. Again, please watch the prior video because I go over it a lot more in those. Alright, let me take this, throw it away, start a brand new layer. Alright, so I'm going to take this, click on the color swatch, take it to black, and then I'm going to lower my brush. First, you can see that my brush can only go so little. Like, I still want it to be a lot better. So I'm going to go check my image adjust, image size. Right now it's on 26 by 15. I'm going to lower this to, let's say, 15 by 8. And make sure your resolution, important, 300 pixels per inch. That's okay. Do this right before you guys start doing your cleanup sketches or the start of your final illustration. So what was kind of big before is now a really tiny brush. You want that so you can really get into like the intricate stuff, like the highly detailed stuff in your drawing. Alright, so you could take black, or you could choose another color. Maybe you want to do a preliminary sketch and then do a cleanup sketch on top of it. So let's choose maybe blue. Again, default brush, opacity 100% with the opacity toggle on. And then I'm going to start sketching. See how much better that is? You could like sketch it much better than it is if you have this off, then you're just going to get a line art. So make sure that toggle is on. In some cases, make sure this toggle right over here in the very right side of the options bar make sure that's on as well. But as you can see, looking at your tool brushes, if it has like a little tiny tip like this, it doesn't require you to press that. But sometimes things like this, where it's flat, if you turn that on, then you could turn on the pen pressure for it. But like I said, look at your thumbnails, look at your brush thumbnails, and see if it requires it or not. Excuse me. Let me erase this. Let me take my brush. Let me go back to a smaller size, and you just sketch. So right now, what I'm looking for is just correcting it. I'm just correcting all the low sizes. Now, Christopher, do you have a tablet? Are you using a tablet, or do you use a Wacom X Pen to a desktop or a Mac, or are you using like like an iPad or a Samsung Galaxy or something where you could use a program like Photoshop or you know other programs like Procreate. I don't mind you guys using those, by the way. But for this class specifically, I really want you guys to we really focus on Photoshop for the most part. See how sketchy that is? You can basically make a little bit more mistake using the sketchiness a bit. I know some of you guys are coming into digital painting for the first time. It just takes a lot of practice to get used to it. Sometimes there's a little bit of a disconnect when you're drawing with let's say an Intuos tablet where there's no screen and you have to look forward at your monitor. If you can afford it, it's tough because it took me a while to kind of afford the tablet I'm using, the Cintiq. But if you can, those are amazing because it's basically like drawing right onto the screen. It's like drawing traditionally. But Intuos is basically what I started out with. I used it for almost a decade before I actually got the Cintiq. So, if that's what you can do for now, that's totally fine. You will get used to it. Like I said, it just takes a little bit of practice. Alright, so basically that's what I want you to do, Christopher, right? I want you to start a brand new layer on top of it and start sketching and cleaning it up. I also want you to establish, like, the composition. Right now, it looks like he's just sitting in, like, an empty space. So maybe you want to, if you hold down Shift, you could create a straight line, horizontal and vertical. Maybe you could establish it by just adding in some kind of a frame. See, look at this already. Just by adding in that rectangular shape, you can basically encase him into the composition already. You're creating, you're placing him within an actual setting rather than like a floating space. And here, if you can, and this goes for everybody, please use references. Highly suggest them because they help your illustration. And the best place to go do that is just by simply Google searching it. Go to Google, search, let's say, lamp. Let me do that. Let me see. Let me just head to Google, search lamp shades. Search for a little bit. Or a desk lamp. Maybe a desk lamp would be better. Here's one. I could just take the image from your web browser, just drag it into your document. I'll create a brand new layer. And let's say maybe I want a reference for a window with curtains. Here's one that looks almost like the one Christopher sketched out. Command T, drag it up so you can have a little reference. Again, it creates a brand new layer. So if you want to take it away, you can just turn the little eye off. You could select these two by holding down on Shift and hit Command G or Control G to group them so you have them in a group. So as you drag references into this, let's say bear, polar bear. Excuse me. So as you drag references into this, it creates a brand new layer. You could take that layer and just drag it into that folder that we just created. You could call this references. And there you have it. You have your reference here. You can just click on this little arrow, point it down, so you can go to the individual layers, and you can pretty much move it around however you'd like. You could also lock it so that you don't actually draw on it or paint it or throw it away. Alright, so let's get back to our little sketch. Now we have a bunch of little references here. So you can see the ellipses on that lamp. Draw it down. Remember, this is just a sketch. The great thing about the layers is that you can utilize it so you can experiment with things. At the same time, you can hold down on Shift to create a straight line, so you can figure out where those armchairs, the armchairs are going to be placed. And you have a little ashtray here. Pay close attention to your shapes. Again, references. Google search, or you could go to AAU Illustration, Pinterest. Excuse me, guys. I'm just dealing with so much allergies right now. Hold down on Shift key. And then I'm looking at my reference for the window dressing. You can even work with a larger brush if you want, if you're more comfortable with that. It's really up to you. Let me turn this reference off so I can draw the bar cart. Find your middle. If you're drawing something with symmetry, find your middle, and you can much easier draw it. Okay, pay attention to your ellipses. And then the last thing I'm going to do here before we go on to the sketch is to establish a horizon line, which is right over here. So this is where we can do our horizon line, and let's establish like a wall right here. So if we turn this off, bump up that light, then there you have a much more cleaned up illustration. So from here, you can lower the opacity of your sketch, which is that blue layer, create a brand new layer. And now let's choose black, and let's do our more cleanup drawing or sketch. Take a brush, same brush. I haven't changed my brush whatsoever. So now you can stay with that sketching and just be a little bit more detailed with what you're doing. Controlling the amount of ink based on the pen pressure. You have to bear with me, guys. My computer has been glitching the last several weeks, so. Give me 1 second. Let's see what happened here.